Today, on Be Something Wonderful, how enchanting your words and your inner speech creates your desired reality. I am your host, Tom Karen, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. I've heard from a few of you now asking me, Tom, I'm not sure what to do after I imagine my wish fulfilled, after I have that feeling that it's done. What else should I do between that and its manifestation in the 3D world? Well, guys, we're going to talk about that today and more. Neville Goddard likes to say that there's nothing to do, right? There's nothing to do. Once you've conceived, right? Once you've conceived that within, once you've created that inner manifestation, it's now persisting in the state of wish fulfilled, right? That's the only thing that you need to do, right? Maintain that, walk in that assumption. That's what Paul meant by walk by faith, not by sight. No matter what you see in the 3D world, no matter what comes up that's contrary to your assumption or your wish fulfilled, see it through the eyes of your fulfilled desire. Right? Because some of you said, well, what about the things that come up in 3D? So let's unpack this, guys, a little bit more. So the story you are telling yourself is your entire life. It's your entire life experience right now. This is what Neville means by inner speech or inner talking. Right? That story that you tell all day long about your life is your life. And not only to what you say to yourself, but also what you verbalize. But keep in mind, by the time you verbalize it, that mental image has already been created on some plane of reality, right? There are no idle thoughts. There is no idle inner speech, right? So your inner speech about yourself and the world equals your entire life experience. This is what Genevieve Davis, the author of Magic Words, her magic books, likes to say, and I love it, right? Your inner talking, the word, is your inner experience, or then becomes your outer experience. Hear this. Your inner talking, your inner speech, what you're saying to yourself all day long about yourself and the world, becomes your inner experience, becomes a real reality, a manifested reality on some other unseen plane. And then it definitely becomes manifested in that outer experience as you continue to persist in it. So the 3D world, the people, events, and circumstances are mere effects of your inner speech. Do you hear this, guys? Your inner story becomes your inner experience, manifestation within, then becomes manifested in the 3D world. That's big. So let's hit this a little bit more. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. We've talked about this quite a bit, but I really want to hit it again. And there's earlier videos on inner speech that covers this, but we're going to take it in a different way today. In the beginning was what? Was your word or the creative power. Just substitute the word creative power for word. In the beginning was the creative power. And the creative power was with God. And the creative power was God. Or you could substitute that for thought. In the beginning was thought. And the thought was with God. And the thought was God. What does that mean? In the beginning was your inner speech. Right? And that inner speech was with God, or in other words, it became your inner experience. And then that word or that inner speech then became outer experience or manifested in the outside world, right? In the beginning was your creative power, your word, your inner speech, your inner experience, the world. That word was with God. That becomes your inner experience. That becomes a mental image. That becomes a manifestation in a reality that's just as real, if not more real, than your 3D reality. Right? That becomes a manifestation. And then that word was God. That embodiment, that you embody that mental image, is now expressed or manifested in the 3D world. Do you hear this? So in the beginning was the Word. That's your inner speech. That's your inner experience. That's your world. That's your entire life experience. That Word was with God, or in other words, it was embodied in your inner speech. It becomes your inner experience. It becomes a mental image. It becomes an inner manifestation. And then that inner manifestation was that word was God. In other words, that embodied mental image is now expressed or manifested in the 3D world. Do you see it, guys? It starts out as the word, your inner talking, your story. That story then becomes a real mental image, a manifestation on another plane, right? In the unseen world, that you embody it. It becomes an embodiment. And then that embodied mental image, that embodied mental equivalent, as you persist in it, then becomes a manifested reality in the 3D world. That's big. So let's hit this a little bit more. Your inner talking is the expression of your I am, right? So when you're caught up in not seeing your I am awareness as that divinity within you, and you see yourself as limited or lackful, or your eyes are on the 3D world, then you're not stepping into your power, that I am power, right? It's beyond, remember, that I am is beyond time and space. It's all happening right now. In the beginning was the Word. Before Abraham was, comma, I am. That I am is all that is, and all that ever was, will be, or will ever be. So it's right now, and it's all time, right? That's big. Before they call, I will answer, and while they're still speaking, I will hear. This is from Isaiah. We've talked about this one before. 65:24. Look at the tenses here. Before they call, present tense, present simple, I will answer. Right? So, and while they're still speaking, I will hear. We've talked about this. This inner speech is a form of prayer. And before you even speak a word, God has already answered. The metaphysical image has already been formed. Before you even speak it verbally, it's been formed. Before you even think a thought, God already knows. That's how powerful. This is all beyond time and space. This is how powerful your inner talking is, or your inner speech. So, in Isaiah 55:11, so shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please or desire, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it. Hear the wording here. That my, notice the capital M. That my is your I am. That's that Christ within you. That's your imagination. That's your I am awareness. And then word is your creative power. My word, right? That I am, that creative power. And then goes forth from my mouth. That's your inner expression of that creative power, right? It's not talking necessarily about physical words coming out of your physical mouth. It's talking about that inner expression of that creative power, that manifestation within on that unseen plane, in that unseen reality, in that dimensionally larger reality. Right? So shall my word, my I am, my word, my creative power be that goes forth from my mouth. In other words, it becomes an inner experience, an inner manifestation. It shall not return to me void, meaning it will manifest in the 3D world. Right? And it shall accomplish what I please or desire, and it shall prosper for the thing which I sent. All thought, remember, is creative, and is expressed on some plane of reality, and shall not return to you void, or return to that I am void. Right? It's manifested on some plane of reality, even if it doesn't manifest in physical 3D. Right? It shall prosper. This is the law of increase. Right? It's impersonal. It's dispassionate. Right? It will prosper, meaning it will manifest on some plane. And as you persist in it, and as you walk in that assumption, as you walk by faith and not by sight, it will manifest in 3D reality. That's very powerful. Let's continue here. When you say the word, in other words, inner speech, with conviction and faith, as I am, as your I am, from a place of that I am awareness, from a place of knowing, from a place of feeling from the heart, then it must manifest or prosper in the 3D world. Your word is your inner speech, is your creative power. Do you hear this, guys? And then in Scripture, the centurion to Jesus. I love this quote. If you remember, the centurion wanted Jesus to heal his servant. And remember, the 3D world, this is a conversation. This says it's a conversation between the centurion and Jesus, but it's really the 3D you opening up to your I amness, opening up to your higher self. So what does the centurion say? Just say the word and my servant will be healed. Wow, Matthew 8:8. This is the centurion to Jesus. He says to Jesus, just say the word. Right? That creative power. Just say the creative power or the word. Right? That faith in the word. And my servant, in other words, the servant represents the body in this case. His servant represents the body, will be healed. Right? The centurion representing the 3D you, the 3D will open to that higher self. Wow, that's belief. That's you believing in the power of your inner authority, the power of your words to express your inner speech through that I am awareness. That's the inner authority equals that Christ consciousness or that I am awareness expressed through your word. Do you see the power here? This is the centurion to Jesus, right? Your inner, in other words, it's your inner speech to your I am. It's your inner speech to your I am. Just say the word and my servant will be healed. In other words, the body. The servant represents the body, the 3D body. Right? Matthew 8:8. Inner authority, Christ consciousness expressed through word. Wow, powerful. So the word takes effect according to your faith and conviction. So your word takes effect according to your faith and conviction. In other words, your inner story. The story you're telling yourself about yourself and the world, it takes effect according to your faith and conviction in it, your inner authority, your I am awareness. This is what Jesus says to the centurion after he healed his servant. As you have believed, so let it be done for you. When Jesus healed his servant, he says this, go forth. As you have believed, let it be done for you. In other words, there's nothing for you to do. Once you match your inner speech to your fulfilled desire, right? Your wish fulfilled, there's nothing else but receiving and allowing state. There's nothing else for you to do. That's the receiving and allowing state. As you have believed, let it be done for you. It's going to be done for you through your higher power, through that I am awareness, as you just persist and walk in faith that it's done. Right? Walk in that conviction, in that assumption, no matter what the 3D world is showing you, right? The centurion understood the power of the word, right? This is big. Listen to this quote. For I also am a man under authority. This is what the centurion says to Jesus before Jesus healed him, right? For I am also a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes. And I say to another, come, and he comes. And my servant, do this, and he does that. So this is the centurion. Remember, the centurion representing the 3D you, the will, your 3D will, to Jesus, to that I am power, to that higher power. He says this, that for I am also a man under authority. Meaning you do have authority as you operate in this 3D world. You have soldiers under you. What are the soldiers? Your thoughts. Right? So you have your thoughts. You have control over your thoughts. You can decide what thoughts you're going to believe and what thoughts you're not going to believe. It's not about controlling your thoughts, really. It's about having authority over them. Hear this, right? I say to this one, and I say to this one, go, and this one goes, right? That's about the thoughts. Those are what the soldiers represent. Remember, the servant represents the body. So he says to that, and to my servant, do this, and he does that. So you have control over your thoughts and over your body by not really having to control it, simply by having the inner authority, right? To direct it, right? To decide what thoughts are you going to believe and what thoughts are you not going to believe, right? That's power. So, like the centurion, enchant your words with your inner authority or your inner speech, right? Enchant your inner speech knowing that your I am awareness, that you have that authority, you have that inner authority, that power within. Imbue them with the divine power, that I am awareness. It's a knowing, it's a conviction. That's what the centurion, the conversation between centurion and Jesus, it was a conversation between you, the 3D you, in your I am awareness. Enchanting your words, enchanting your inner speech with that divinity within you. Telling the story how you would like it to be. And then resting in that knowing that that's how it will be. because you said it, you declared it, you assumed it, you're walking in that faith, right? For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. This is Matthew 12:37, meaning you can only justify yourself or condemn yourself with your inner speech, right? But they will manifest, right, on some plane. So by your words you'll be justified, or by your words you'll be condemned. So are you going to match them to your wish fulfilled, no matter what you see in 3D reality? Or are you going to let the 3D world determine your state of being, determine how you're going to feel? Right? Are you going to give your power away to the people, events, and circumstances? Or are you going to align with that I am awareness, like the centurion did with Jesus to heal his servant? Right? There are no idle thoughts, right? Words are creative power. In other words, there's no idle words or creative power. It's not about controlling the thought. For every idle thought or word men may speak, they will give an account for it on the day of judgment. This is Matthew 12:36. For every idle word men may speak, they will give an account for it in the day of judgment. What's Jesus talking about? What's the day of judgment? That's every day. That's every moment. As you match your inner speech or the words or your inner talking to your wish fulfilled. That's the day. It's not some day that you're going to be judged by an arbitrary power outside yourself. You are the judge and the jury, right? So for every idle thought, man may speak. In other words, word equals thought in this case. They will give an account for it in the day of judgment. So what really? Stop believing everything you think. Step outside of your thoughts, and you get to decide what thoughts you're going to believe, what thoughts you're going to create, what thoughts you're going to assume, right? This is big lesson today, guys. It's not about empty affirmations, right? Some of you have asked about affirmations. Affirmations can work, but they're not about empty ones. It comes from a place of truth, from your heart, right? It comes from that heart. It's heartfelt. Right? You're going to tell it how you would like it to be, and it will be. But it's not coming from a place of empty or vain affirmations. It's coming from a place of feeling, a feeling place. That you know that what you declare, what you assume, what you say about yourself is true when you decide it's true, when you assume it. That's big. Remember, you're always telling a story, and that story attracts other thoughts. That creates your life, right? I've often said before, you're always telling a story. So you've talked yourself into your current life situation. Why not tell a different story and talk yourself into your wish fulfilled or your desired state, right? Your heart enchants your inner speech. When it comes from the heart, when it comes from that feeling place within, that deeper sense of knowing, that you are one with God. You are one with that creative power. Now you're enchanting your words. Your words are God. It's that I am, or that higher power speaking through you. Your words, your inner speech is God speaking through you. It's that I am. So enchant them. Enchant them with that higher divine thought, with that higher divine thinking. Right? So when contrary evidence appears in 3D, or in other words, unwanted realities, tell a different story in that moment. Tell a different story in that moment. That determines your entire life, how you respond, the story you tell about it. Right? That's big. So Genevieve Davis, the author of the Magic books, in the moment you change to say something different, to think something different, your whole future changes course. That's big. But not only your future, it changes your past. We've talked about that. There's only the now moment. So when you change the story in that moment, despite what you see on the outside, despite the appearances of the 3D world, you change not only the present, in the future, you change the past. Right? What's the gift? This is what Genevieve Davis says. This is your gift. In any moment, you can have a completely different experience of whatever's going on. Wow, that is a gift. Whatever you see in 3D, you can tell a different story. That's magic. That's real magic. That's enchanting your words, right? Matching your inner, this is what Neville Goddard says, matching your inner speech to your fulfilled desire. Neville was clear about this, and I want to hit this. This is what he says, and this is mind-blowing. He says, as we control our inner talking, matching it to our fulfilled desires, we can lay aside all other processes. I've talked about this in earlier videos, but if you haven't gotten to those, I'm hitting it from a different angle today. But this is powerful. What's Neville saying? Lay aside all other processes. If you get this down, if you match your inner talking, your inner speech, the story you're telling yourself, in other words, your entire life experience right now, to match it to your fulfilled desires, you can lay aside all other processes. That's powerful. That is big. That's a wow. The future becomes the present and reveals itself in our inner speech. This is what Neville says. The future becomes the present and reveals itself in our inner speech. You're pulling the future into the present through your inner speech, right? Through the word. Inner speech is the word. In the beginning was the word. In the beginning was your story or your inner speech. And that word or that story was with God. In other words, that became your inner experience. It became an inner manifestation in that unseen reality. And then it was God. It becomes a manifested reality in 3D. That's powerful. How enchanting your words and inner talking creates your desired reality. I am Tom Caron, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like, and share our videos. That's how we get our message out. You can hit us up on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful. We also have a group now called the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors. More and more of you are joining by the dozens here. I love it. You can also join us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Caron. Soon, we're going to have a team. We're going to have different content there. So it's going to be exciting, I promise. Right now, the content's very similar, right? If not the same. And guys, you can visit our website at tomcaron.com or besomethingwonderful.com. I want some of you have been sending emails, guys. As I said, the info at Be Something Wonderful is really just, it's hundreds in there now, but our team's going through it. We're going to get through them. I just want to thank you for everything. I want to express my deepest gratitude. Big love, big light. Until next time, this is Tom. See you soon.